Hey everyone, my name is Jessie Jennings and welcome back to another episode of Art Journaling with Plaid. Today I'm going to show you how to make a really fun and loose word collage to put in your art journal using some FolkArt matte acrylic paints and some specialty paints. So let's get started. To start our word collage, we're going to make a really fun background to kind of loosen us up and use some really pretty colors and get an idea of what we want our color palette to be. So to do that, we're going to use our Mod Podge squeegee tool. So this tool is really great because, of course, it's awesome for smoothing out paper when you're doing your Mod Podge projects, but it's also really good for smearing paint and doing kind of a squeegee and loose paint effect for your background. So I'll show you how I do that. So I'm going to grab some of my FolkArt acrylic paints. I've got kind of a fun, bright color palette that I'm going to play with today. I might use all the colors, I might not. I'm going to kind of see how it goes once we start painting in our journal. So I'm going to start with some Calypso Sky, this really pretty bright blue. And this is a little different than the way you normally paint because I'm going to just squirt it right onto my paper. I'm going to do a few dots here and there and then start spreading the paint around and kind of see what my composition looks like. Do just small dots for now, and then you can kind of get a feel of like how much paint you need. That you can go back and do, bigger areas of paint later on if you want to. So now I've got my Mod Podge squeegee, and you can use the flat side to sort of pull the paint in different directions, and you get a really beautiful sort of blended and loosely painted technique. And I have some paint still on my squeegee, so I can go back and add that in some other places. And just do what kind of feels right. Like, it just matters what looks nice to you. There's no rhyme or reason or rules when you're painting like this. It's just supposed to be relaxing and fun and experimental. There's no right or wrong way to do this. I'm gonna grab a paper towel and just wipe off the excess paint. I tried to use up as much as I could because I don't want to waste the paint, but there's only a little left. So I'm going to go ahead and wipe that off. You just need a dry paper towel. You could dampen it too if you wanted to, but it comes off pretty easily. And then I'm kind of going to keep going with lighter colors and then save my darker colors for last, just because it'll be easier to layer that way. So now I'm going to do some of this conch shell, which is one of my favorite FolkArt matte colors. It's like a pretty super pale peachy pink color. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep doing it the same way. Like I said, you can start being a little more intentional with the way you're adding your paint now that you get a feel of how it'll go on once you bring the squeegee into it. And you can blend it together with the colors you've already placed down on your art journal. And again, I've got lots on my squeegee, so I'm going to keep applying that. So now I'm going to do this really pretty lime green color, which is called New Leaf Green, and it's like a super bright yellowy citron color. And since we're kind of bringing in a whole new hue to our palette of colors we have here, this, if it gets with our pink color that we've used, it's going to get a little bit muddy. So there's a couple ways you can approach this. Since we're kind of blending these colors together, you can either stay away from the wet paint that you've got already and kind of stick in some of the open area so it doesn't blend, or you can hit this with a hairdryer and dry it first so that it doesn't mix with the wet paint. So there's a couple of options. I'm going to go ahead and keep going and just kind of try to stay away from the pink as best I can. If it blends a little bit, of course, that's totally fine, but I just don't want it to be a big, muddy mess when I'm finished with my page. I love, love, love this pop of super bright green. By the end of our background, we're going to want to make sure we cover most of the white of the page. We want it to be really, really colorful. And of course, once we start adding our word collage, after we're finished with this, that will help too, but I just want to make sure that we don't have a lot of white showing when our page is finished. I'm going to use some Violet Pansy, which is a really pretty like medium to dark purple. And I'm going to kind of stay away from that green still. It's okay if it mixes, of course, with the pinks and blues. That'll look nice, but I don't want to get into that green too much. And I'm just kind of, seeing what feels right, where I feel like I could use a big pop of that bold purple color. And then I have bright pink. So I'm going to add a little bit of bright pink, not too much, because again, this is another, just like the name says, another really bright color. That I do kind of like the way this is going, almost like a neon, super modern sort of palette. I'm going to go back with a little bit of that first blue that I used because it'll look really nice with all the colors we have here, whether it's the pink or the purple or the green. The blue will blend with those really well. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a little bit more of this to fill in some of these still open white areas. Okay, so I think we're done. I have all of my white pretty much covered. So now we're ready to either let this dry or use a hairdryer to dry it. And then we can start on our word collage. Okay, so now all of our paint is dry for our background and it's time to start on our word collage. So to prep for your word collage, what I did here is I made a list of words that are important to me. Of course, these won't be the same for you. They're going to be different for absolutely everyone. But I just made a small list here for me to reference as I'm sort of making the collage and making the composition and putting words in different places. So I can always look back for what words I want to use for mine. So I'm going to set this aside. And then I'm going to grab a fine brush. So this is a number 1 liner brush. It kind of depends if you're somebody who likes to hand letter. I'm sure you have lots of brushes you like to use at home. You have a specific kind that you like to use. I like to use the small round myself for when I'm painting letters and painting words and things like that. So you can use a small flat brush if that feels better to you, but it really is up to you. So this is what I'm going to use to paint my words. And I'm going to use the same palette that I used for my background, just so it feels very cohesive. And when we're done, it feels super unified, like all of the different paint strokes go together on our page. So to start, I'm going to grab let's start with our desert flower, this pretty corally color. Put a little on my palette here, I just have some palette paper. And I'm going to pick up with my paintbrush. And then, like I said, I'm going to kind of just start painting the words that I listed on my little list here. And I'm going to start where this color is not, of course. So I'm not going to start painting right on that color because it'll just disappear. So I'll try to kind of start in the areas where I don't have any of this peachy coral color, and then we'll kind of move around as we're going through our different colors. And it's up to you, what font you want to paint in. You don't have to worry about having good handwriting. That's not really what this is about. This is just about getting the words that mean something to you on the page, whether they're good or bad, just kind of getting them out of your brain and into your notebook. You can do, fancy script if you want to. You can just do big, block letters. It is absolutely however you want yours to be and whatever you feel comfortable doing. And I'm going to kind of turn my page around so I have some different angles and to make it more comfortable for me to paint with since I'm right-handed. So the next color I think I'll do is maybe this purple color. We'll do some violet pansy. It'll look really nice in some of these lighter blues and pinks. I'm trying not to, smear my hand through it. So I'm kind of keeping my wrist lifted as I'm painting. I'm kind of putting my hand here to prop it up so that I don't have to rest my hand in the wet paint. I think I'll go for some of this new leaf green. So now as a final touch for our word collage, I'm gonna add some glitter and some of our color shift paint. If you haven't used this before, this is an iridescent paint. So it comes in lots of colors. This is one of our pastel colors called pastel green. And it really shifts colors in the light. So it's really fun for things like this. So I'm gonna put a little bit on my palette. You can already see how iridescent it is. And I'm gonna grab a medium-sized flat brush. This is a number 12 flat. And I'm just gonna paint some brush strokes over the words. It can be a little bit transparent when you do it in just one really thin coat. So it'll look really nice as almost a top coat for our word collage. I'm gonna start here. I just want it to go really thin because I don't want it to cover up any of the words we made, but you can see some of the darker colors through still, which I think is really pretty. So you can kind of see how that shifts in the light. So I'm gonna keep adding some more of this. Just really, really thin, so you can still see all of the painting we've already done beneath. So that gives us a little bit of shimmer and shine. You can kind of see how the light catches it. It just looks really pretty on a piece of art like this. And then lastly, I'm going to put some of our glitterific on. So the color I'm going to use is our glitterific in pink neon. And kind of like the color shift, since it's a really light color, if you put it on super, super thin and it has a really clear base, you can still see all of the art coming through. So I'm going to put a little bit onto my palette. I'm just going to use another flat brush to spread some of this on. You could also use a palette knife if you wanted to, but I'm just going to use a brush. You could even use the squeegee. And our glitterific has a really, like I said, a really clear base and really big chunky particles of glitter. So it's really great for accenting when you're art journaling. So that was the last step of our word collage page. I hope you had fun art journaling with me. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment if you have any ideas for more art journal pages in the future. For more inspiration, go to plaidonline.com.